Chelsea beat Everton 2-0 at Stamford Bridge, bringing an end to their 4-game winless streak. Cole Palmer was back on the score sheet, scoring his first goal since returning from injury. Both Enzo Maresca and David Moyes set their teams up in a 4-2-3-1 formation, looking to cancel each other out through compact midfield structures and controlled build-up. Let's dive into the tactical analysis of the match. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, only if you want to. When in possession, Everton consistently looked to initiate build-up from the goalkeeper. Jordan Pickford played a key role as an extra outfield player, stepping higher to support circulation and numerical superiority in the first phase. During this build-up, both fullbacks, Vitaly Mykolenko on the left and O'Brien on the right, advanced high and wide, often positioning themselves on the same horizontal line as the midfielders. This created a temporary midfield four alongside James Garner and Idrissa Gana Gueye. At the same time, James Tarkowski and Michael Keane split wider across the pitch, allowing Pickford to position himself between them and form a temporary back three. This structural adjustment effectively shifted Everton from their base 4-2-3-1 into a 3-4-3-1 during the first and second phases of build-up, with the goalkeeper acting as the central node to facilitate ball progression. The extreme width provided by Mykolenko and O'Brien was a deliberate strategy. By hugging the touchline, both fullbacks stretched Chelsea's pressing structure horizontally, creating wider passing lanes and forcing Chelsea to make difficult pressing decisions. If Chelsea committed aggressively to shutting down both central access and wide outlets, it would require overcommitting numbers into the press, potentially opening up space behind the first and second lines, particularly in the half spaces, for Everton to exploit. Conversely, if Chelsea stayed compact centrally, Everton could recycle possession wide and use the fullbacks as pressure release options to bypass the first line of pressure. To counter this, Enzo Maresca set Chelsea up in a strict man-oriented pressing scheme. João Pedro was tasked with initiating the first line of pressure, triggering the press whenever the ball entered Everton's backline. His role was to curve his pressing runs to screen central access while forcing play towards the flanks. Alongside him, one of the wingers would step up to create a 2 versus 3 pressing scenario against Everton's back three, but with a key emphasis on cover shadows. The pressing winger was instructed to angle their approach in a way that placed Everton's full back in their cover shadow, preventing a direct pass into the wide outlet. For instance, when João Pedro and Garnacho stepped up to press, Garnacho's body orientation was used to block the passing lane into O'Brien. When the press was initiated on the opposite side, Pedro Neto performed the same role by screening Mykolenko. This pressing detail was crucial in dictating Everton's build-up direction and limiting their ability to escape pressure cleanly. In midfield, Chelsea committed fully to individual reference points. Enzo Fernandez was assigned a tightly man-marked Gueye, denying him time and space to receive on the half-turn and dictate tempo. Cole Palmer mirrored this role on James Garner, ensuring Everton's double pivot was consistently under pressure and unable to form clean vertical connections. Reece James was tasked with tracking Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall's movements between the lines, maintaining close proximity to prevent free receptions in the left half space, and later transferring this responsibility to Carlos Alcaraz following the substitution. As a consequence of this man-to-man structure, Chelsea's press deliberately funneled Everton towards the right side, particularly towards O'Brien. Once the ball was played into that channel, Chelsea executed a pressing trap. The nearest winger, full-back, and central midfielder collapsed aggressively towards the ball, closing passing lanes inside, cutting off backward options, and using the touchline as an additional defensive constraint. This created repeated 3v1 or 4v2 overloads near the sideline, forcing O'Brien into rush decisions, backward passes, or low-value circulation across the backline. Overall, Chelsea's pressing scheme successfully disrupted Everton's build-up rhythm, limited their ability to progress centrally, and forced them into predictable wide patterns that could be controlled and contained. When Chelsea were in possession, they looked to build up in a controlled manner from the back. Normally, Malo Gusto operates as an inverted fullback, moving into the attacking right half space. However, with Cole Palmer starting, Chelsea adjusted their positional structure. Instead of pushing high, Gusto dropped into a deeper central role, forming a double pivot alongside Reece James. This allowed Enzo Fernandez to advance into the left half space, while Palmer occupied the right half space between the lines. Out wide, Garnacho and Pedro Neto held maximum width to stretch Everton's defensive block horizontally, while João Pedro remained high to pin the center backs and provide vertical depth. With Gusto stepping into midfield, Robert Sanchez adjusted his positioning by stepping into the defensive line, forming a situational back four alongside Cucurella, Chalobah, and Fofana. This positional rotation transformed Chelsea's base 4-2-3-1 into a 4-2-4-1 during the build-up phase, with Sanchez acting as a supporting outlet to maintain numerical superiority in the first line. Chelsea's build-up was relatively simple but structurally effective. With Enzo and Palmer positioned in the half spaces, Everton's midfield line was constantly occupied and stretched, which in turn created isolation scenarios for Garnacho and Neto on the wings. This often resulted in 1-versus-1 confrontations against their respective fullbacks, situations Chelsea were happy to exploit. The presence of Sanchez in the back line also allowed Chelsea to circulate possession comfortably from side to side, building through wide triangles involving Cucurella and Fofana on the left, and James and Gusto on the right. This flexibility made Chelsea extremely difficult to press, as Everton struggled to create effective pressing triggers without leaving space elsewhere. To counter Chelsea's build-up, Everton chose to sacrifice wide pressure in the initial phase and instead focused on closing central passing lanes. Their pressing approach was compact and heavily man-oriented. Jack Grealish was tasked with tracking Gusto's movement into midfield, ensuring he could not receive freely or dictate tempo. Dewsbury Hall and later Carlos Alcaraz followed Reece James closely, while James Garner was responsible for marking Palmer between the lines. Idrissa Gana Gueye was instructed to step out aggressively onto Enzo Fernandez, limiting his ability to receive on the half-turn and progress play centrally. Out wide, Everton's fullbacks maintained tight marking responsibilities, with Mykolenko tracking Pedro Neto and O'Brien matched up against Garnacho. The objective of this pressing scheme was clear: deny Chelsea access through the middle, restrict time and space for their most creative players, and force possession into wide areas where Everton could control progression and slow the tempo. By doing so, Everton aimed to stall Chelsea's build-up, encourage lateral circulation across the back line, and prevent vertical progression into advanced zones. In response, Chelsea showed strong positional intelligence. Both Enzo and Palmer frequently dropped deeper, positioning themselves close to James and Gusto to draw their markers out of Everton's midfield line. This movement created temporary numerical overloads and passing triangles in deeper zones, allowing Chelsea to combine quickly before executing fast switches of play. These rapid lateral switches were key in bypassing Everton's compact press, exploiting the far side space and advancing the ball higher up the pitch with greater control and momentum. Once Chelsea were able to bypass Everton's press and establish possession in the final third, their attacking focus shifted decisively towards the wide areas. They consistently looked to exploit the pace and 1-versus-1 ability of their wingers, Garnacho and Pedro Neto, to directly attack Everton's backline and destabilize their defensive shape. Chelsea structured their attack through well-defined wide overloads. On the left flank, they formed consistent passing triangles involving Garnacho, Enzo Fernandez, and Marc Cucurella. On the right side, similar combinations were created between Pedro Neto, Cole Palmer, and Malo Gusto. These triangular structures allowed Chelsea to generate numerical superiority in wide zones, facilitating quick combinations, third-man runs, and rotational movements. The presence of these overloads created multiple attacking options: overlapping runs from the fullback, underlapping runs into the half space, and inside movements from the winger to receive between the lines. This constant rotation made it difficult for Everton's fullbacks and wide midfielders to maintain compactness and clear marking references, often forcing them into late or reactive defending. Both of Chelsea's goals originated from these wide overloads, with the second goal, Palmer's finish, being a clear example. The overload on the right side dragged Everton's defensive block towards the touchline, creating space centrally for Palmer to arrive and exploit the gap. The speed of combination play and positional rotations in these wide areas was a key factor in breaking down Everton's defensive structure and converting territorial dominance into goals. Overall, Chelsea's victory was built on clear positional structure, intelligent rotations, and a well-coordinated pressing and attacking plan. Their ability to control Everton's build-up, bypass the press, and consistently create wide overloads in the final third proved decisive. By exploiting the half spaces and isolating Everton's fullbacks in one-on-one situations, Chelsea were able to turn territorial dominance into goals, with Palmer's strike perfectly summarizing their attacking approach. That brings us to the end of the tactical analysis. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Let me know in the comments what tactical detail you'd like analyzed next. Thanks for watching.